That's a bingo! Is that the way you say it? That's a bingo.
You just say bingo.
Bingo! How fun!
All right, That's a Bingo is back. It is September 16th. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined by Matt Pine, rocking what looks to be a flannel robe. Are we really that in the fall mood right now? I kind of like it.
Yeah, one of the perks of working from home is you can dress in the attire that you choose. Today probably felt like the first day, real day of spring here on the East Coast. Got a little bit of a chill in the air, so I thought, why not?
First day of fall.
Yes, fall. My bad. Yeah. So, I felt like I would be, a little cozy and, settle on in here for another podcast.
I got to say, I like it a lot. Went for a run earlier, rocked the hoodie for the first time. It was a very crisp 60 or so degrees here in Baltimore County. So, you truly do love to see it. Fall arriving on time for once.
Yes, fall. Definitely fall, not spring.
Not spring. No, you definitely crushed that. But what are we here? What are we doing here today, man?
Yep. So today we've got an interesting episode. As always, we're going to do our movie review. Jake picked this one for this week. We're going to do Miller's Crossing, which is a Coen Brothers flick. Basically, the entirety of our podcast so far has been Coen Brothers themed. It's at one point or the next, either with Fargo, the TV show, or a couple of movies from them. And then before that, we're going to get into a director draft where we're actually going to pick 5 directors of our own. Probably tweet out with a little bit of a graphic as well, so our listeners can, have their voice heard.
Absolutely. It's going to be a ton of fun. I brought my short list. I feel like we're going to be looking at a lot of the same guys, specifically off the top, but we will have time to get into that. We do have some news that we want to cover first. So why don't you start rattling some of that off for us, bud?
Sure. So we had a couple of trailers drop in the past week. One I'm really excited for is The Mandalorian Season 2. This is going to be coming out, I believe, in the end of October here, just a month away or so. Obviously, I was a big fan of the first season, Jon Favreau direction. This looks to be, more of the same. Maybe dive a little bit deeper into the Mandalorian's history, give him a little bit of a backstory. But I don't know if you got a chance to check it out.
No, so I saw part of it, but I don't want to watch yet because I haven't seen the show, actually. So I do need to check out the show first. Don't have Disney Plus, but I'm a Star Wars guy. I like the original trilogy the most. I saw the Force Awakens and I saw Rogue One. I kind of checked out on the newer trilogy after that, so I'll have to get into that. I'll have to get into The Mandalorian a little bit. I know there's not much tie-in with a lot of the movies, at least not directly. So I'll definitely be checking it out. The trailer, the first few seconds I thought looked cool. It's definitely got the vibe that I like. Big Jon Favreau guy. So I'm going to have to check that out at some point. I've heard that people pretty impressed by the trailer.
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, I think it's only been out, 24 hours or so. But, Star Wars is extremely popular, and people seem to really like the show. It didn't really come off, hokey. Kind of interesting to see the different guest stars like Bill Burr and random people making cameos in episodes, but it all works in the end.
The idea of him being in that makes me need to check it out all the more, because him and his like whiny Irish voice is just going to be it's going to be all that I need in my Star Wars content.
The extreme Boston accent going hard. Oh yeah. So
I'm not going to sit here with no midichlorians listening to you with no midichlorians. I need to check that out.
Yeah, he's great. Check out Bill Burr if you haven't seen his stand-up. He's a funny guy.
Absolutely. Check him out on the Rogan as well.
Yes, always on there. And then another trailer to check out would be the Trial of the Chicago 7. I wasn't really a big fan of the trailer. It was just kind of repetitive. Didn't give like too much of a backstory. like the people chanting in the background. The whole world is watching the entire time. Just kind of droned on a little bit, but it does seem pretty relevant to today. You know, they say you know, you're doomed to repeat history if you don't pay attention to it. And you know, at some points this year, it has looked like the 1970s. So should be pretty timely for this year.
Yeah, late 60s, early 70s. You get a lot of vibes with that with 2020, unfortunately, because they were, you know, very turbulent times. Looks like this movie is set in 1968. You're all over it. Another trailer I'm going to have to check out. Going to need to look more into this because you do seem pretty jazzed up about it, and it sounds pretty good from just the surface level stuff that I've seen. Any
new Aaron Sorkin, I'm all in for, so that's probably why.
Yeah, exactly. What else we got news-wise?
Third piece of news I had here was the new Guillermo del Toro flick, Pinocchio movie. His quote is absolutely hilarious, if I can pull it up here. So apparently this film is going to focus on disobedience. And he said, I thought this could be an interesting background for Pinocchio. If we set it during the rise of Mussolini, an interesting time for a puppet that refuses to obey. Should be something else. I'm not a big, I shouldn't say I'm not a big Guillermo del Toro. I haven't really seen much of his work. I know he is the direction for The Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth, and the Hellboy movies. I've seen Hellboy, but haven't really checked the other two out yet. But, you know, put a modern twist on an older theme should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it seems like kind of his thing. I'm not too familiar with him either. Shape of Water actually set in Baltimore, so I've been meaning to check it out, but it also does feature fish fucking, so maybe a reason for me not to check it out.
Yeah, that's definitely on the the priority of not to watch for me, at least.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe we'll check it out at some point. Maybe we'll review it. What do you think about that?
All in, buddy. I'm all in, and I think that would wrap up the news section. Other than that, before we move on to the draft, we could always do a little what movies we've been watching in the last week, if there are any other ones besides our movie review.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you start us off when I pull up my list here?
All right. Let's see here. So first one I saw of the week was Hard 8, which is a gambling movie. I went in probably with a little bit higher expectations than I should have. This is Paul Thomas Anderson's first feature film. You got John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow. You got Samuel L. Jackson. You got Philip Seymour Hoffman, Philip Baker Hall. Quite the cast. Didn't really deliver for me, though. I think if you're going to have a gambling movie, it should be more than 20% of the movie, it was like barely ever in the casino. It was just more about the subplots. So, yeah, didn't really do it for me, but hey, it's worth a shot.
Sounds kind of like that weird Two for the Money movie with McConaughey and Pacino.
Didn't see that one.
Another mediocre gambling flick. I actually had the guy that was based on Baltimore B-Town last year.
Oh, wow.
The guy who McConaughey played. So, yeah, pretty funny guy. Brandon Lang. Interesting dude. I saw Pineapple Express all the way through for the first time. I've seen it in altered states at different different parts of it in altered states throughout the course of my life. Never sat down and watched it all the way through. Did that. Extremely fun movie. 7.7 out of 10 for me. I think I wrote, I really miss the days that Hollywood just didn't take themselves so seriously. I feel like there hasn't been really this funny of a movie, or maybe not this funny of a movie, but, you know, really funny movie since like 2008, it feels like.
Yeah, that era is gone, it seems like. It's just like, obviously, a lot of PC stuff going on, which totally get it. But I do miss that era for sure, like that mid to late 2000s comedy, the Apatow style comedy. Pineapple Express is one of my favorites ever. I've seen it probably 10 times or so. And great cameo there by Bill Hader in the beginning is quite hilarious.
Yeah, his collaborations with Seth Rogen around this time were really popping off, with them being in Superbad together as sort of the buddy cop angle of that movie. Yeah, Bill Hader, absolutely hilarious in it. Seth Rogen doing the Seth Rogen thing, being pretty exceptionally funny within the movie as a stoner who plays a guy who serves the court papers. I found it pretty enjoyable. It's peak Seth Rogen, I thought. Peak
Seth Rogen, peak James Franco. I mean, this is kind of the start of
Danny McBride getting a little action in there.
Danny
too.
McBride. Yeah. Before Eastbound and Down, I believe. And this is kind of peak Franco and Rogen, and obviously they're in the interview a little later on. But thoroughly enjoyed this. I saw it when it came out. I was like 13 years old, and it was a little shell shocked probably at the time. But
I saw the cross scene. So we had Superbad on DVD, and they had like a preview of it for whatever reason. We shouldn't have been watching Superbad even at the time, but they had like a preview.
I think
I think Superbad came out first, and Rogan included a little preview of the cross joint scene in the Superbad DVD. So me and my brother watched it, and we were like, "Oh man, we got to see this movie," and I just never got around to it all the way through. But really fun watch for sure.
Yeah. Next one for me, a Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Rave
one
review.
of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. I gave it a 9.9. I think it's not going to have the same mass appeal because it is a French movie. So just like Parasite, probably detracts some people just because you have to read subtitles. But nonetheless, it was great. It's a love story between two women, so it's a little bit different. And it's actually shot in 8K as opposed to 4K. And not an expert here, but as far as I'm concerned, it draws out more of the colors. So the cinematography really added to it. It was raw, it was emotional, and the end scene really gets you. And to me, like I watch a lot of movies, like I've watched 170 or whatever in my quarantine list, but this is like a true film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. It sounds incredible. Yeah, you got the foreign thing going on, so maybe that's going to be a hindrance for some people, but I'll have to check it out at some point.
Streaming on Hulu. So
okay, very cool. Yeah, I didn't really get an opportunity to check anything else out. Getting into my very busy season here with football starting up now, so I'm gonna try and make some effort to mix some stuff in. But I got the other pod going full force as well now, so I'm gonna try. But it was only Pineapple Express really on the list for me this week.
Yeah, no worries. I can touch on another one or two here. Did watch another Paul Thomas Anderson. Watched 2 in 1 week. The Master. Big PTA guy. We may or may not touch on him in the director draft. We'll have to see.
Okay.
But I saw The Master, which basically seems like a biopic of L. Ron Hubbard, who started Scientology. The Master. Yep. Master is starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's in every PTA movie apparently. And Joaquin Phoenix gives a great performance there.
Guys with the hyphenated names just attract, I think.
You have to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, this appears on my Netflix like every time I scroll, so I'll check it out at some point.
Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris. He's not in it, but
it would be great if he was.
It would be great. It would be great if he was. Just do magic tricks all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman kind of preying on the lonely. Like Joaquin Phoenix seems to always play this type of role. Like seems like his breakout role was Joker, but he always seems to play a similar character. Really liked it. It was like a 8.6 out of 10. It was okay. And then the final one was Annie Hall, which is just a strange one. I do like the whole like Woody Allen vibe. Like he has a distinct directorial style, but there was like a lot of like asides. He would like explain the scene as it was happening, like straight to the camera.
Little House of Cards vibes, it sounded like. Yeah,
something along those lines. But it's just fun to see, some older movies, see how they approach the filmmaking process, and pretty good movie watching week, I would say.
Okay, hey, sounds good. I'm gonna have to step up my game here. It sounds like.
I like it. Well, Raven season full force, I understand, but
absolutely great start by them, by the way.
Yeah, want to know, man. I mean, come on, it's the Brownies.
Yeah, well, you still love to see it.
You love to see it. You love to see Baker in 6 commercials and never win a game.
Mega tough scene there for Baker. We're gonna have to maybe we'll break down one of his commercials one of these days.
Relevant.
Okay.
All right. So I believe we are ready to move on to our director draft. It should be very exciting. How do you want to handle this, Jake? The old Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, rock, paper, scissors, or what works for you?
Yeah, let's try that, actually.
Okay.
I wonder how the latency is going to...
Yeah. All right, ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You got me. You get the first pick.
QT, Tarantino.
Yeah, that's obvious. And obviously, you don't need to tell us anything about the stuff that he's got going on.
No, I think you're probably aware of the name of our podcast, but it's I'm picking the director, so I guess this does not include True Romance, but Glorious Bastards, Pulp Fiction, the whole gamut. He's the obvious choice here.
Depending on the way the board falls, True Romance might come up at some point for me, but
I catch your drift.
Yeah, number 2, I'm going with Marty Scorsese. He's just a tremendous director. I think he's got a great Marty is definitely. I think we both knew Quentin was going to go number 1 with both of our proclivities there. Maybe not the best director of all time, Quentin, but he's and he's also not the most prolific either. Only 9 movies, but like of the 9 movies Quentin has made, at least 4 of them are in my all-time favorites. Kind of different with Scorsese, like very prolific guy, worker, I think in the truest sense. I'd argue he has many more hits than misses, though. Catalog exceptionally deep. He makes Goodfellas. That's my favorite movie of all time. And he's got a roster that's deep enough to the point where a movie like Wolf of Wall Street, for example, it doesn't even crack his top 5 for me.
Nope.
I think that's pretty strong. So I'm going to go Marty with my first pick there.
Yeah, he would have been number 2 for me as well. I like to mirror his eyebrows as well. And what's that?
You should try to go full gray at some point very soon.
Maybe touch of gray. I want to see how that works out.
Do the wingtips like Paulie Walnut.
Yeah. For my next pick, probably going to be a little bit off your radar, but I'm going to go Francis Ford Coppola.
Okay.
His top 3 movies, Godfather Part 1 and 2, and Apocalypse Now, are probably 3 of my top 10 movies of all time. Really strong in his heyday. He was in that whole group with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, all friends, director friends. And he, definitely his heyday was in the 70s, kind of, trickled in some stuff here in the 80s and 90s. But I think if we're talking best of the best, he's got to be in there. Yeah,
of course, he's a very famous name. I know a lot of his stuff. I haven't seen all of it. I've seen The Godfather 1 and 2. Kind of not really my favorite gangster movies, but I like them just fine. So that's a strong pick. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Coen Brothers. So we're going to be talking about them later. Exceptionally out there, not always going to appeal to the mainstream necessarily, but when they hit, I think they hit big. So there's some clunkers in there. They haven't released a hit in a while, but I think with the top of their catalog, it's going to be some of my all-time favorite movies. So I'm going to go Coen Brothers as my second.
That would have been my next pick as well. So with number 3, I'm going to go David Fincher. So Social Network is definitely one of my top movies of all time, 9.9 for me. Also really love Zodiac, really love Seven, really love Fight Club. This dude was just crushing it out of the park in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very strong pick there as well. Social Network, one of my all-time faves. Third, I'm going to go Chris Nolan, a guy who's somewhat out there at times, but I think much more mainstream than maybe he'd like to even admit. I think even in his most ridiculous in a movie like Interstellar, I still really enjoy his stuff. So, yeah, big Chris Nolan guy, itching to check out Tenet.
Yeah. Funny enough, I wouldn't have had Nolan in my top 5. So
I can see that. I think just for me, I like him a lot. So I get it.
He's in my honorable mention. Though. I have like three guys on there.
Fair enough.
I'm going to snipe you here because I think you're going to pick this guy. I'm going to go Tony Scott.
He's on the list. I don't know if he would be my next pick.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go Tony Scott here. Obviously, the aforementioned True Romance, Top Gun, Enemy of the State. This guy's really underrated, and I kind of think that he falls under the shadow of his brother Ridley a lot.
Right.
Unfortunately, with his passing in 2012, we couldn't really see much more of his work. He also did Unstoppable in 2010, which is very underrated movie. And just like his work, just seems like he's a lover of film, and I really appreciate that. Yeah,
he's just a great chap. And he was on my list. Tremendous action movie director. Really like Tony Scott's work. So he was close. I don't know if he would have been my next pick. Next pick, I'm going to go. Board's falling pretty good for me. I'm going to go Steven Spielberg. Nice. Quality and quantity. Another guy who kind of hasn't hit in a while, unfortunately, at least for me. But he's got a deep catalog, a diverse catalog, fun popcorn movies there like Jurassic Park that I think that kind of not for nothing essentially created your summer blockbuster type of movie. And then I think it stacks up as a nice like palate cleanser to like a heavier movie like Saving Private Ryan, which is arguably the greatest war movie ever made. So very deep catalog. Hasn't hit in a while again, but I'm going to go Steve Spielberg, number 4.
All right, I like it. So final pick for me. This is a tough one. I have a couple guys in mind here. I'm going to end up going with Alfred Hitchcock. Just because in the 50s, he really created the art of the suspense. Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho. Just has a catalog of all basic, 9.0 plus movies. And, really appreciate the oldies but goodies.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very good pick. I've seen a few of his movies. I need to dive in further. I figured you'd probably pick him at some point. So Hitchcock, a great pick there. And for my last one, I'm going to go ahead and go with Steven Soderbergh. So fast, fun, stylish type director. You kind of don't get the sense that he has a ton to say with some of his movies. Out of Sight, a great example of a movie of his that's just sort of under the radar, very fun, not overly serious, which I like a lot. And I like the fact that his work kind of doesn't insist upon itself, which is nice. But he also does have some cerebral movies in the mix there, like Aaron Brockovich. So I think Steven Soderbergh going to be my 5th pick there.
And he directed Ocean's 11 as well, right?
Yep.
One of my favorites of all time. So definitely can't complain there.
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Pretty good draft here. Do you have any honorable mentions? I know I have like 2 or 3 guys to talk about, but
I threw a few on there, not a ton jumping out that hasn't already been mentioned. But so you said Hitchcock, correct?
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick, Sergio Leone.
He was on there. Yeah, he was on there.
Yeah, so Leone, kind of a bright star. He only had a couple really strong movies, but they were very strong westerns. And Kubrick, just a pioneer of the industry. You don't have to say too much about him.
Yeah, that might be the biggest slight from our list, not having Kubrick on there. Just how much of a visionary that guy was.
Just a little before our time,
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. A couple guys I had on my honorable mention list. Wes Anderson. I know you're probably not too big into him. I've only really seen Rushmore, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Grand Budapest Hotel, but he's like the most distinct director. One of his movies when you see it, and I appreciate it. It's kind of like artsy, like, I don't know, kind of weird, but I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's definitely out there from what I've seen. Don't know too much about him, but yeah, he deserves to be mentioned, I think.
Yep. And then 2 other guys I want to talk about were Damien Chazelle for La La Land and Whiplash. Knocked it out of the park with those 2 movies. And I think he has one other. I think he has the Neil Armstrong movie as well on his IMDb. But for those being his first 3 movies, I think this guy's got a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then definitely couldn't let this list go by without mentioning Bong Joon-ho, from Snowpiercer, from Parasite. It's cool to see like these foreign directors really appreciate American film, and Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, and I just love everything this guy puts out.
Awesome. All right. Anyone else?
I believe that wraps it up.
Cool beans. You ready to jump into this week's movie?
Let's do it.
All right. So Miller's Crossing, 1990, Coen Brothers, starring Gabriel Byrne, Albert Finney, I think his name is. A couple other names in there. John Turturro, John Polito worked with the Coen Brothers. Opening thoughts on Miller's Crossing?
Yeah. So I know this is one of your favorites.
Yep.
After seeing this is probably in my top 5 Coen Brothers. I'd have to actually put together a formal list, but I love it. I love the timeline. This is really like a neo-noir type movie where you're focusing really on the Prohibition era, even though it's made obviously in the 90s. Loved it. I love the whole the gang affiliation, and then we have the love interest. Kind of hits all the steps you need for good drama. Really, really appreciated some of the acting performances in this one.
Yeah, I think that's what it's propped up by partially. I think the story is interesting. It's kind of light and breezy at times, and it can get a little confusing, but it's ultimately very strong. I think maybe what most stands out is the dialogue, how it's written and how it's said. I think Gabriel Byrne especially stands out in that. And yeah, it's the set and costume design are also interesting choices. I think going back and reading Roger Ebert's review, he liked the movie, I think he said, but he felt that it felt more like a commercial of a gangster movie rather than an authentic one, which
Yeah.
I get that, but I think there's a certain irony with like the opulence of it all, and it plays better with the irony of a movie about lowlifes living that kind of lifestyle. And I think it's backed up by the fact that the movie was partially conceived by the irony of these contrasting images of sort of old school gangsters in this undisturbed forest. Soundtrack also really strong by Carter Burwell. We're going to get into that, but yeah, I like it a lot, man. It's a 9.3 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I had it in the 8s. I had it like around an 8.6, I think. I could see kind of where Ebert's coming from. And to be honest with you, I watched it once, didn't really get it. Like I had to go back and watch like a little bit more of it, rewatch. And, I think since you discussed that, I think it's fair to say that some of the characters can be a bit confusing as to who they're affiliated with. It's just one of those things. And I'll get to this in like throwing tomatoes a little bit, but like a nitpick I had with it. I'll talk about that. I find it really interesting when the opening scene where they really question ethics and like how that kind of plays in, and like John Polito's character kind of plays like the holier than thou type thing.
As a gangster, which is sick.
A gangster. Yeah, it's just insane. So I think that irony really plays well, and I think that's as Coen Brothers as you could get.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to me, I think my general meta net thought on it is that it plays out like a novel on the screen. So it's a lot of dialogue. It's a lot of mentioning characters well before they appear on screen. I think Beansy, who's the Turturro character, excuse me, they mention him a ton of times, and then he's just not on the screen for like a while. And then he finally does appear in this sort of Spielbergian-esque reveal, talking to Tom there in his apartment after breaking in. So very dialogue heavy, dialogue driven in a lot of different ways. And it just sort of moves out sort of like a novel on the screen, which I think is incredibly unique. And probably what I like most about it is the way that the whole aesthetic of it kind of plays into the way that the story was written. It feels like an especially constructed movie, and maybe a little more straightforward than you'll see from the Coen brothers, but just enough of that Coen quirk that you still can tell that it's sort of them behind the screen there.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. I do see so many similarities to Fargo, the TV show. So I think like what's the director or the showrunner of
Noah Hawley.
Noah Hawley, yeah. I think he got more of his inspiration from this movie versus the actual Fargo movie.
Yep.
And I'll talk about that in Keeping Score, where the music is almost exactly the same at some points. But also really appreciate the Steve Buscemi cameo there. That was pretty funny.
What do you mean you appreciate it? What are you talking about? Come on, Tom. Jesus, Tom.
That's about as 20s as you can get. That was great.
Yeah, it is. And he was chosen for the role. I guess we'll get into it in trivia, but he was chosen for the role because he was able to speak the lines the fastest.
Oh, didn't know that. That's pretty interesting.
I think his first collaboration with the Coens, 1990 here, him and Turturro.
It's also got to be one of his first movies that he's done.
One of his first big ones, at least. Yeah.
This is before Reservoir Dogs, so this has got to be. I know Steve Buscemi was a firefighter for like 4 years, and then he got into acting.
Yeah, which is sick. So he's great in this as Mink, and just funny performance by him. Great performance by Turturro, who's kind of a contemporary to him, is the way the story plays out. And just an interesting movie. I'm glad I picked it around this time. Fall weather, sort of the nice little chill in the air. It feels like the right time for that. And you mentioned Fargo, season 4 coming out, some reviews rolling out for it already. And it mentions that there is a big sort of connection with this movie once again for season 4 of that show. So exciting stuff.
Yeah. And as far as I'm under the impression the neo-noir kind of has to do with the aesthetic. Not only like the time period, but also like that shadowy, kind of dark aesthetic. So Miller's Crossing definitely plays into that hand in terms of genre. Really like this one, man. And in my opinion, John Polito played it really, really well. He was probably my favorite performance.
Yeah, he's right up there for me. I think I would go Byrne for my favorite performance. We'll get into that, but he totally hams it up as that like stereotypical 20s Italian gangster right in the heart of Prohibition. And I think the script says it's set in 1929. Not something I think I really realized until this viewing, which I've seen it a couple times before this, but yeah, that Prohibition era Italian mobster, he plays it perfectly, hams it up. I'm sick of the hi hat, all that shit. His delivery is perfect, and he was actually originally going to be cast as Leo, but I think he campaigned to get the role of Johnny Casper. So a great job by him.
Yeah, that probably a good call on that part as well.
Yep.
But yeah, Gabriel Byrne as Tom Reagan, that was great. I don't know how much I've seen of him in other stuff, if at all.
Usual Suspects is the only one I really
okay. Okay, yeah. So definitely was surprised by that. But yeah, I think the Coens kind of have an affinity for an earlier time. With Miller's Crossing, with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, we already covered. Inside Llewyn Davis, it seems like they have a certain admiration for this time period, and definitely a really strong time period to make movies about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you ready to hop into some categories?
Let's do it.
What do you got first?
All right, so first off, we're going to do Throwing Tomatoes, some scenes that we might have some problems with, characters we might have some problems with, and for me at least, I think this is just more of a nitpick than anything. I don't really know if it's a legit gripe, but some of the pacing at some points were a little bit slow for me. I think that was kind of the point. I think that was very much intentional. But if I'm in a gangster movie, I think I'm looking for a little bit more upbeat. Not to say this should be Goodfellas or anything like that. I think the time period has something to do with that, but that would be my one Throwing Tomatoes.
Yeah, which came out like a week before Goodfellas, so it got absolutely clobbered at the box office. So
that's rough.
Unfortunate. Yeah, it's rough. But yeah, to your point, the script does get a little bit complicated as well, which I think sort of muddies the waters with the story at some points, which is kind of, a little frustrating. But yeah, and it especially happens the further you get into the film. Things start to get really, really complex. And
yeah,
I think it does lead to the ending being a little bit abrupt too, which I found strange. So that's another nitpick. And then my only other one was the gunfight between Leo and Casper's guys. Little over the top, seemed a little
I love it.
out of place in a somewhat otherwise, simmering and sort of low key movie here. But it was fun to watch at the very least.
Well, yeah. See, I totally get how that's like a nitpick, but I also love that about because what you're getting when you get into Coen Brothers movies. At some point
it's a Coen-esque flourish, but maybe it speaks to the fact that this isn't that Coen-esque of a movie in a lot of ways. Yeah,
and I've heard Tarantino say on some podcasts that if you go into a movie and you're in good hands, at some point it's going to work out for you. The Coen Brothers really can't help themselves. They can't just make a normal movie just straight through. So I don't really have too many problems with that. But
maybe you should just let it drift.
Dude, it's insane. When he grabs the one gun, the two guys have Tommy guns. I'm like, how are you going to get out of the situation? And God, you gotta watch and see.
Loud at that point, Danny Boy cranking over the speakers on 11. So yeah, fun to watch if nothing else. I did still enjoy it for it being kind of a little out of place, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought of the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where the bank robber randomly lights up the cow. I'm just like, okay, they just love lighting people up. That's cool.
Yeah, same energy.
If that's your thing, same energy. All right, so that's a Bravo. Touched on a little bit. For me, it was just the strong acting performances. John Toledo, who is in a lot of Coen Brothers movies. This is not his one and only appearance.
Right.
He's in movies that I haven't seen. So he's in Barton Fink. He's in what's the other one he's in?
The Man Who Wasn't There.
Man Who Wasn't There. Yep, and another one as well. But I think his performance, Buscemi's performance, I think they just really nailed the gangster vibe. And I can't, forget to mention John Turturro as well.
Yeah, Turturro is great. All those guys you mentioned are great, but I got to give a shout out to Byrne. I think his performance, stands out the most to me as the most straightforward Coen protagonist. He's a good-looking dude who's, kind of a tough guy a little bit, kind of a smart guy, a little bit different than what they usually go for. Speaks the dialogue, maybe the most unique, and I think better than the rest of the actors. Plays Tom really well as a distant and kind of deadpan scumbag pretty much, but he's also, I think he manages to be pretty compelling, and he's the smartest guy in the room in pretty much every scene that he's in. And just an intriguing, simmering performance here by Byrne. Really wanted to shout him out. Also, his decision to actually play the role with his original Irish accent. The Coens wanted him to play it American, but yeah, he insisted that he do it with his accent because he figured the dialogue would sound a lot better with the way that he speaks in real life. So I think that was a great decision by him. It speaks to how smart Byrne is as an actor, because it worked really well. Like if you listen to some of his delivery, like he's not above the occasional grift, and like just the way he says like grift and the way he kind of like works the dialogue a little bit, it works really well. Other That's a Bravo for me would be, even outside of the soundtrack is pretty obviously at the top of the list, but just the sound design, I think like the ice jingling around and the whiskey glasses and sort of the wind blowing through the trees, just really, really nice, subtle touches there.
Yeah, and I also do like the dialogue between him and Verna. That quick, snappy dialogue, like we say, is always a nice
Don't give
touch.
each other a break at any point, really. Those two.
No, I mean they're they're pretty vicious at some points there, and very sarcastic, which I appreciate. And I would also include that. But
maybe the most Irish aspect of the entire movie is their relationship.
Very much so. Yes, very much so.
Among many things to pick from.
Yes. So definitely would recommend watching this. If nothing else, you're going to see great dialogue. You're going to hear great dialogue. You're going to watch great characters, and another Coen Brothers movie. So why not?
Absolutely. What else we got?
Keeping score. Her favorite music. We've talked about how the soundtrack is great. My favorite would be Danny Boy when they come to try to kill Leo. And I would just say that the clarinet overall, the opening title, the opening credits, and
oboe actually.
Yeah, exactly. And the jingle bells that you hear is exactly what you hear in Fargo season 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see the influence there, and the score is by Carter Burwell. Totally gets what the Coens are going for with this movie, which probably wasn't easy to do. And I think the soundtrack really does serve as a sort of personality for it. That original score by him, you get that image of the hat blowing in the wind over the opening credits, and it kind of makes me emotional watching it. I mean, like this is a movie that has some emotional depth to it, but I wouldn't say that's especially what it would be remembered for. But I think it really carries a lot of weight, and it sort of serves as the personality for it. Like I said, Carter Burwell, 3rd of 16 total collaborations with the Coens, which is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, and talking about collaborations, this is actually, I believe, their last film before they switch over to Roger Deakins for cinematography.
So it's Barry Sonnenfeld, right?
Sonnenfeld, yeah. And I thought he did a great job. I thought he nailed it, and some of the scenes outside were especially striking to me. So I thought, good job there overall.
Yeah, underrated shot, I think, too, is the one of like the big city in the background. I think it's supposed to be New York, but like I found that really cool. He does do a great job.
Yep. Shot in New Orleans, I want to say.
Was it?
Yeah, I believe so. But I don't think they ever mentioned the location in the movie.
I thought it was Chicago forever. Well, at first I thought it was. So this is what's especially interesting about it is so, like you mentioned, I always use this phrase to the point that it's probably a cliche, but it's rewards the rewatch, where you go back and you listen to this dialogue and what they're saying and what they're talking about. It does reward that very much. So I thought it was Chicago when I first saw it, because you sort of get that prohibition vibe from it. He was a little Midwesterny, but then there are a couple passing references in the movie to maybe it being New York, where they talk about going to the Palisades, which is an area in New Jersey. And then Tom has a throwaway line about running to Niagara Falls. So I guess it's supposed to be New York. I'm kind of glad that they left it ambiguous, because at first I thought it was just a town called Miller's Crossing. It turns out it's not. Turns out that's like the name of where the roads meet, where the woods are, where Tom goes to whack Beansy. So yeah, just a ton of layers in that respect.
Yeah, that scene was great out in the woods. John Turturro, great performance, begging for his life out there, and then he finally gets got there at the end.
I'm begging you, please look at your heart. What does he say? We'll get to it in quotes.
All right, well, next category, but yeah. Man, I really appreciate this one. I don't know. I think for me, for it to be in the 9s, I think I would have liked the pace to be a little bit quicker. But I think it's an underappreciated Coen Brothers movie. I think people obviously think of like the big 3 or 4, but I think this would being there for me. I think I like the overarching theme, and appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah, I get it. I think it's a total like mood piece. So for me, I just remember the first time I saw it, I think I was fresh off of seeing Fargo season 2, and I got it recommended to me based on me liking that. And so kind of maybe I overrated a little bit in that respect, but I don't know. I think looking around the internet, there are plenty of people that are sort of all over it in the same way that I am. So I know I'm not alone in that respect, and it's definitely within my top 3 Coens, I think.
Yeah, and I think you kind of brought that up a few episodes back when we were talking about like what our feelings are on movie theaters. I think like your movie going experience has a lot to do with how you originally take the movie, why you saw it, who you saw it with. I know I was the same way with Django Unchained. Like I probably overrate that movie more than I should. It is a great movie, but it was my first introduction to Tarantino. So I'm like just like get kicked in the mouth right away with the violence and the character arcs.
That's an interesting first director effort to check out there.
Yeah, so I think that definitely influences how we perceive some of these movies.
Absolutely. Okay, what else we got as far as categories?
Category would be number 4 would be quote and quotables. So this movie definitely has no shortage of good quotes, good dialogue. Right off the bat, I think one of my favorites in the opening scene there is they're talking about John Turturro's character Bernie, and they say, "Oh, so you want to kill him? All right, we'll do that for starters."
For starters, yeah. Eddie Dane, great delivery there. I don't know that actor's name off the top of my head, but he does a great job. And that whole first opening scene. It just opens, like I mentioned, with the whiskey glass and the ice just sort of shattering into it to set the tone. Mm-hmm. And you got Polito doing the whole ethics thing. He's doing that, and they're just riffing. Like you got Feeney says, like, "So you want to kill him?" For starters, that's your introduction to the Dane character, and Tommy's just sort of sitting in the background the entire time, and it sort of leads into one of my favorite quotes, which is I think one of his first few lines is he's basically telling Feeney's character Leo, like, bad play, like you shouldn't have gone against this guy, and he's like, think about it, like think about what you're doing, and he says, "Oh, come on, Tommy, I don't like to think," and Tom says, "Yeah, well, think about whether you should start," walks out, and then that opening credit sequence starts to play, which I think is just like some of the most perfect like 10 minutes or so of Coen Brothers that you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to immediately draw you right into the movie. I kind of hate when movies like start with like, depending on what the movie is, but I kind of hate when it just starts with the opening credits and you get like 3 minutes of like traveling or whatever. Right. I do like when it starts like in medias res, as they say. There's a vocab word for you, but yeah, definitely.
I always put it as in media res, so maybe you're a little more classy than me.
Maybe. That's how my, not to brag, but my senior year literature teacher, taught at the University of Notre Dame. So I think I would know.
Oh, well, guess who got their master's from the University of Notre Dame? Not me, but my mom.
Really? That's impressive.
Yeah, a little bit. She's an impressive woman, old Mary Luke. And probably another reason why I love this movie. She is dyed in the wool Irish Catholic. So I think I get a lot of good comparisons and bad comparisons to myself and some of these characters.
Interesting. Have you ever been over to Ireland?
No, but I know you have, and I'm incredibly jealous of you. It's a bucket list golf destination for me. So maybe when I got a little bit of money, I'll go over and play some of those links courses that I've read all about and seen a ton of videos about. Love Ireland. Want to get over there.
Little sidebar. Is that where McElroy is from, or is he from England?
He's from Northern Ireland, but yeah.
Northern Ireland. Okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, definitely hearing Tom Reagan's performance there kind of brought me back a little bit, not gonna lie. But
yeah, definitely. I got some good stuff I could recommend to you. Say Nothing. One of my favorite books of all time I've ever read is about the Troubles. So maybe we'll review that at some point. I'm
down. Definitely interested to hear more about that. Next quote for me, when Leo's talking to Casper, it's just the whole 1920s dialogue type feel. He says, "You haven't bought any license to kill bookies, and today I ain't selling any. Now take your flunky and dangle." Like,
yeah, it's very like punchy, kind of like 1920s-esque. It's almost, you feel like they should be saying it extra fast and black and white and saying like, yeah, but they're not though. Like, it's just very straightforward, which is so weird and so cool at the same time, I think.
Yeah. definitely
And he
brings
says
back
that
helps.
he, like, calls out the Dane. He's like, "Oh, the Dane would know all about Mink's whereabouts." And he's like, "What's that supposed to mean?" And he's like, "Let it drift. I'm just saying." It's just like, what does that even mean? Like, this dialogue is just so unique in that respect. I've mentioned it a few times, but just very well written.
Yeah, I don't typically do this, but I was listening to a podcast about it, a little movie review action, to get me a little bit more prepared for this one. And they said, I don't really know how much this movie could be made today. Don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but like some of the terms and some of the expressions would definitely show the date of the movie, even though it is a noir film.
This is a mini series if it's made today, I think.
Yeah, probably
On like HBO.
Hence Fargo season 4.
There you go. Exactly. Which we'll be talking about in a couple weeks.
Yep. Any other quotes for you?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Verna, Leo's got the right idea. I like him. He's honest and he's got a heart. Tom, and it's true what they say. Opposites attract.
Yep, that was on my list.
Yeah. These two just absolutely go at it. I've got another one on there from them just ripping each other apart as well.
Yeah, I'll do one more here from those two. Tom says, Rug Daniels is dead. Verna says, gee, that's tough. Tom says, don't get hysterical. Love that.
Tom, also talking about Rug. All in all, not a bad guy. If looks, brains, and personality don't count, you better hope they don't.
Man, I was hoping you would have done that Irish accent all the way through, but you nailed the first half of that.
Yeah, it's just not above the occasion.
No, you don't.
Well, she doesn't speak in one, to be fair.
Yeah,
because like that was her saying it back to him if you didn't pick up on that.
Still funnier when it's in an Irish accent, just saying. But,
yeah. Bad play, Leo.
My next one is Lazarus Messenger comes up and he's like, hey, horses got knees? And Tom says, I don't know, fetlocks. And the messenger says, well, if I was a horse, I'd be down on my fetlocks praying you don't bet on me. Yeah,
there's a way that they kind of thread the different like dialogue. It's kind of Sorkin-ish in that way, where they thread different pieces of dialogue together to make one long, like, overarching line that all just connects together. I think that's yet another example of that. And then my last one, Tom, nothing more foolish than a man chasing his hat. And that's him talking about like his dream to Verna of him like chasing his hat through the woods. And basically, it essentially explains the character of Tom. He's a very like heady dude. He's got a lot going on underneath the hat in his brain, which explains why he needs it as his sort of protection piece or security blanket, and why he keeps losing it. And he's just sort of chasing it around. And the image of the hat blowing through the woods, it's all sort of symbolic about how the hat is sort of like the man's like dignity and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very gangster-ish type of flourish that they do there as well.
Yep. And then my last quote I have here from Tom is, I wouldn't worry so much if I thought you were worrying enough. Just kind of like these, and that was my experience over there too. Like, it's like very sarcastic the way they speak. Like it's almost like they're making fun of you, but they're not. Like, it's all in good fun.
They're just very, very knowing people. They've been through a lot of shit. They have a perpetual chip on their shoulder because of their relationship with England and the rest of the United Kingdom. A very old society, very religious, spiritual society. And there's a lot of anxieties and a lot of posturing and not really dealing with your anxieties in a healthy way. As part of Irish culture, I think that really comes through in Tom's character very well with his, drinking and his gambling and stuff. That really is the crux of what gets him in a lot of trouble in this movie. So, interesting point there.
Yep. Any other quotes to wrap up?
No, man. I'm all set to go into trivia if you are as well.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So I had a good amount here that I pulled off IMDb. Do you have a good amount as well?
I do not. So I'm going to probably rely on you for this one.
Cool. Okay. So first one, there's a heavy Barton Fink connection. I don't know. Have you seen Barton?
I have not, but I did catch that. I think it says Barton's Arms over the top of the. You can explain that better, but
yeah. So that's where Tom's apartment complex, I think, is called the Barton's Arms, and basically Barton Fink is a result of this movie, kind of, because the writers, the Coens, they suffered writer's block while working on this. I think understandably, they took a 3-week break while writing this to just write Barton Fink. So they just wrote Barton Fink, which is a movie about. I haven't seen it either, but apparently it's about a writer with writer's block. So it's maybe the most Coen
like
thing.
when comedians talk about like airplane food, like it just That's what they're going through. So that's what they're talking about.
Exactly. It's the most Coen's thing of all time.
Yeah.
The Coens almost did 1989 Batman, which we've talked about on here. They turned it down because they wanted to make this instead.
Would you rather them do 89 Batman or Miller's Crossing?
Miller's Crossing for sure. I would be curious to see what that would look like, though.
Because that's true. We don't get Miller's Crossing if they do 89 Batman, but that would have been something.
Yeah,
go ahead. Give me Steve Buscemi as the Joker, and we're in business.
Oh my god, that would be. I like to introduce a little anecdote.
Here's my card.
So yeah, in the script we talked about this film takes place in 1929. I don't know if I necessarily would have guessed that. I don't think I knew that. Like I mentioned when I first saw it, I pegged it for more like a 1950s type vibe. I don't know why. They mentioned like Volstead and stuff in it too, so maybe that was just me not knowing much about Prohibition. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, any Prohibition era is going to be in that time frame, 20s or 30s. But I could see the 50s potentially. I think hopefully we'll get a little bit better feel for that in the next season of Fargo. Yeah, which I think is set in 1950 on the dot. So yeah, we probably will. So we had the Gabriel Byrne using his own accent type thing. Then IMDb mentions that Albert Finney is also using an Irish accent in the movie. I didn't pick up on that. Really?
Yeah, I thought Leo was supposed to be American and Tom was like maybe just came over from Ireland or whatever. And they
don't catch that whatsoever.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. This was the Coens' first collaboration with Steve Buscemi and John Turturro, like we mentioned. So decent little filmography between that quad of people, I guess you would say.
If you haven't seen Do the Right Thing, one of I think it's Spike Lee's best, but John Turturro gives probably his breakout performance in that. I think that landed him several roles in the 90s. Definitely, great in that, great in this one as well.
Okay. So the city, we've also talked about that. Never directly states where it takes place. It doesn't even say it in the script, I don't think, but it does sort of point to it being in New York, with Tom telling Verna to leave town and go to the Palisades until everything blows over. The Palisades is a stretch of rocky cliffs off Bergen County in northern New Jersey and Rockland County of New York State, and then also that Niagara Falls line. The line "Jesus Tom" is said 8 times, 3 times by Leo and 1 each by Frankie, Mink, Bernie, Chief O'Doul, and Mayor Lavander. My favorite one has got to be Mink. Jesus Tom, when he's on the phone and he's like starts ranting at him and he hangs up on him.
Yep, that was going.
Why the fuck would you say that, Jesus Tom? While writing the screenplay, the Coen brothers tentatively titled the film The Big Head, their nickname for Tom Regan, because the first image they conceived was that of a black hat coming to rest in a forest clearing. Then a gust of wind lifts it into the air, sending it flying down an avenue of trees. We obviously do ultimately see this, with this being the image of the film's opening credit sequence. I think they made the right decision with Miller's Crossing over The Big Head.
Yeah, definitely a better title. Shout out Nelson Baghetti from Silicon Valley, who is known as Big Head on the show.
Yeah, he would have been great working with them. We got to get that guy hooked up with them at some point. That'll give them the return to prominence that they need.
Yeah, for the remake, we'll have it's just the Silicon Valley cast, actually. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he's above the occasional grift. I'm Big Head.
So who would TJ Miller play? That's the question.
He would be good with them. Like no bullshit there. He's a guy who I think could play drama fairly well at certain points. He actually did in that HBO show with Pete. What's his name?
Pete Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a brilliant comedian. I don't know if you ever seen like his work, but like he did
really
that whole
show. I don't know like how much of that's his actual material.
Well, he did he does like this improv comedy, like where they just shout things out and he does a bit about it like on the spot. Really smart guy. Yeah,
he seems like it. Shame that it didn't work out there with Silicon Valley. I never saw the end of that show.
I mean, no. After season 2, I dropped off. I want to say 2 or 3.
I think I stuck with it for 3 or maybe even 4, but it just kind of got a little repetitive. Big Mike Judge guy though, so glad to see him getting good work.
Yeah, Mike Judge, great. Mike Judge.
And my last bit of trivia. This is kind of a weird one. Sam Raimi and Frances McDormand both make cameos in this movie.
Yeah, I noticed Frances McDormand as soon as she was on screen there, and guess it wouldn't be a Coen Brothers movie, but
I knew.
Yeah, I saw we've talked about this before, the whole dynamic of Joel Coen and Frances McDormand being kind of odd. I did see some from this movie, like on set, some pictures of Joel Coen. looks exactly like Howard Stern / Big Bird, but pretty funny to me. I don't know.
That's a good comparison. I never really thought of that. Probably a little bit different personality-wise between him and Howard Stern there.
Probably.
But yeah, Sam Raimi's like a gunman in one of the scenes, one of the gunfights. And then she plays the main.
He's the guy with the two guns, right? He's like firing back and forth.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that she was in it. That expands her filmography with them even more so. Obviously, she would have her seminal role in Fargo like 6 years later with them. But yeah, it's cool that she got this little cameo in it.
Definitely check out Raising Arizona if you haven't seen it. She's plays a semi-significant role in that one, and I think very, very different movies. Raising Arizona is way more cartoonish, but you get to see the breadth of the Coen catalog between the 80s and 90s movies.
Very cool. All right, bud. Anything else on this one?
No, definitely a good recommendation. I think it's going to move into my top 5 Coens. Probably got to reevaluate that, but really, really enjoyed it. I love the period piece.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great period piece, great sort of fall vibe movie with the weather just starting to cool down on us and the wind starting to pick up a little bit. I think it was a good choice for that, good choice for the fact that Fargo's coming up. And glad that we got to go back and revisit this one with a critical eye because I've only seen it a few times just as a fan. So it was really fun to revisit this one. Yeah, like I mentioned, one of my all-time favorite Coens.
Are you ready to hear our next movie for our next movie review?
I certainly am.
So you watching, Pineapple Express kind of wants me to hedge a little bit in that direction just for this one, maybe just a 1 week thing, do a true comedy. And this one does definitely not have a fall feel, but we are going to do Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Ooh, I've been meaning to watch that without even us talking about it.
Yep. So it's going to be available to stream on Hulu, and it's a good one. It's definitely one of my favorite comedies of all time, written by Jason Segel, also starring him.
Jason Segel? Really?
Well, yeah, the opening scene might disturb you a little bit, but
so I've seen like 7 seconds of this movie, and that's Russell Brand saying he's a major, major influence on me, mate.
Paul Rudd also gives an all-time performance in this one. It's
cool. Paul Rudd is in it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. All right.
Look at us, man.
Sure, why not? You and me? No way.
Not me.
As they say in the movie, when life gives you lemons, say fuck the lemons.
Sick. Sounds like my kind of vibe. Okay, yeah, I'm excited. Sure. I'm glad we're shifting away from the more serious pick here and going to something a little more fun. I think that's
I'd bring a little bit more levity. I think we have a pretty good time on this podcast. You get some laughs in, especially with a lot of the quotes from our favorite movies. But I thought a true comedy would be a nice change of pace.
Definitely, I'm glad you did that, and maybe we'll analyze how a comedy needs to come back because we need it right now more than ever.
That would be a nice broad discussion there. Agreed.
Okay. All right, bud. Well, this was a lot of fun. You got anything else other than that?
No, I don't believe so. But if you want to follow us on Twitter at Bingo Pod, we're posting a lot of trailers for upcoming stuff, TV shows and movies. I posted a few days ago my latest Letterboxd ranking of all my movies. I think I said I had 4 foreign films in my top 15, which is not probably something I expected going into this. We also posted Jake's movie list, his latest list there. So lots of cool stuff you can find on our Twitter account, and if you want to give our personal handles as well.
Yep, you can follow me at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE, and you can follow Matt at MPyne PYNE_. Really appreciate you guys listening. Check us out on YouTube for full video episodes of this, and on Instagram at That's a Bingo Podcast, where we're going to be posting a lot of our video content as well. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, and have yourself a great rest of your week.
Booyah.
Peace out.